Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar. This is one that is not incredibly popular, and I think that it's not given us enough attention in the marketplace, which is why I'm doing it today. Because as a serial entrepreneur, as somebody who's been in the entrepreneurial aspect of life for the past 20 plus years of my life, with a stint in the United States Air Force in between current and previous. Uh, sorry, real quickly, I just had to change the screen here. I tried to change my chat to my private chat. All right, so with a stint in the United States Air Force, I've been in entrepreneurship a long time. And one thing that I see is not often talked about and not often uh, dove into enough, because everybody, when they get into entrepreneurship, nobody gets into it to fail. Nobody gets into it to go through the terrible hardship and sacrifice that it's going to take, that you're going to have to endure in order to build a fruitful business. Nobody gets in it for that. You get in it for other reasons. You get in it because you want to start a legacy business for your family, or you get in it because you want to be successful or seen as someone who's successful, or you want to be seen as a business owner, and you are maybe you are our current leader and you want to be living out that leadership potential that you have within you. You have some kind of fire in it, but nobody gets into business to deal with the unbelievably deep trenches that occur in our lives, in our business. Somehow we detach in our minds, in our hearts, and I don't know if we do this intentionally, unintentionally, it just happens. We detach ourselves from the fact that in our life we have periods that are deeply, deeply discouraging, that are low and painful, and that we have problems in our relationships, and sometimes with family members and close family members, or it could be problems with coworkers. It could be problems in from your church family if you're a churchgoer, and you think you and I'm not just I'm not we think that somehow as a business owner, when we get into doing business, we're kind of excluded from negative things and very painful outcomes and painful situations. If we're just smart enough, if we're just talented enough, if we only make logical conclusions over time, if we just invest ourselves enough, that we will have all of this pain and suffering extracted from our journey in business. And that is a farce. That's not true. It's not a reality. One of the reasons that I believe in the Christian worldview is actually because God in the Bible, they talk about suffering and the reality of it, and that there's a God in heaven who goes through that with you. And so that's one of the reasons I value it so deeply. And somehow we think that we can create this little microcosm in our world where no suffering and pain will exist. And that's an error, especially when you look at entrepreneurship. And so that's why I want to shine the light on some of this today and talk through it, because so many entrepreneurs want to be seen as only successful, only rolling in big piles of cash, and never having the downturn in your market, never having a bear year or a bear couple of years in your business. But the reality is that you will. And if you're not prepared for that mentally, morally, in your heart, that alone may crush your business. It may completely crush it and destroy it. And I've been in entrepreneurship for the last 20 plus years. I've learned a few things about this and how to navigate through it. And those are the things I'm going to talk about in this webinar, hopefully to help you to be able to endure. So this is about strategies to keep your business alive when your sales are low, when you're going through a dip, when it's painful, when you're not feeling successful and things aren't looking bright. What to do when things just won't go right in your business. You've done everything you can. You've coupled all of that activity with prayer, and yet nothing's changed. You know the opportunity is there. You see it in the world. You see it in your industry, and still nothing moves. And you've been working for a long time, for 6, 10, 12, 24 months, and it's still hard. And you're like, gosh, I thought this was going to be easier. And it's still tough. There are some traces here and there. I mean, you've got some sales, you've got some things going, some traces of gold that are keeping things alive, that are keeping barely sometimes. Sometimes it's just like barely feels like you've covered all the expenses and that we had a net zero or maybe minus $10 a month, and we kind of barely made it because we had a little bit of savings in our account or something like that. And you like, okay, we made it through the last month, but you haven't experienced a rush, a gold rush in a really long time. And it's very, very painful because this was not how it was supposed to go. It was supposed to go much better than this. It was supposed to be brighter and more beautiful and joyful. It was supposed to be a wonderful experience, and it's just not. Worse yet, you prepared for a flood that would come. You gathered team members into your company, and you created this preparation because you were so sure that you were going to have an influx of sales, and it was going to be an amazing period or future few years, and it still hasn't come. But you prepared for that. You trained all your team members, and you're over leveraged, and you can't sustain the current situation because you just haven't been able to get to those sales in due time. What do you do? And that's what this webinar is all about. Guys, I'm just going to get on a real personal note here right now. I'm having a very, very painful sensation go through my jaw right here. I've been going through some chiropractic adjustments, and I've adjusted something, and in my jaw, it's become very, very painful. And so I'm hoping I'm not going to wince too much while I'm speaking, or that's going to affect this webinar very much. But I just wanted to let you know that in case I pause for or something like that, it's probably because I'm feeling a lot of pain. All right. So what do you do? My name is Jason, by the way. If you're here, you probably know that. I've been in the entrepreneurial space for 20 plus years. And I've been in this situation more than one time that I just described earlier. And I'm here to say that I've made it through. And you will make it through too. And there are some principles that you can take from this webinar, some practices that you can put in place, and some things that you can bring into your life that in your operations that hopefully you hear in between the lines as I speak through this webinar today, that you can take with you and say, okay, I can use that for my company. It's going to help us during this time. That's very applicable. So if you find something like that today, please leave it in the comments below. If you have any other questions or you would like to know more about a specific thing, please take a moment and write us a comment. And it could be a long one, short one, that would any length, it really doesn't matter. We will make sure that we respond to your specific question, your specific need. And if I can do that while I'm live on the webinar, I'm more than happy to do that for you. So the questions, all right, back to the webinar material. So the questions pile up. What did I do wrong? Like I've worked all this, I've gone through all of these steps. I've followed all of these principles. I've tried to be an excellent leader. I've tried to manage my resources well. I've tried to be a good learner. I've tried to apply myself in my relationships with my family. I've tried to balance myself in my work life. I've tried. What did I do wrong? And sometimes the answer is you didn't do anything wrong. What am I missing? Like these are questions that from time to time, I struggle with some of these questions as I work through the different challenges, the different phases in business. Because there's one thing that I know about business to be absolute certain, and is that as you grow and as you work through current day challenges, you will have to face future challenges that are much harder and much more spiritually crushing to you or morally crushing to you than you ever thought you would have to face in your life. And it's just a reality of going through and operating a business. And so As you solve this problem, you'll get to the next problem that will be harder. You'll get to the next problem that will be harder. You get to the next problem that will be harder, and it becomes and but as you grow, as the challenges get harder, you grow, and so your potential to deal with the bigger challenges is much greater. So how did we miss out? How did we miss the projection by so much? I thought we would do so much better by now. How did we miss it by so far? Should I take a loan? Should, just like all the other businesses? I mean, the heck with my values. Like this just sucks. This seems like it supersedes all my values. The things that I put in place, the parameters that I put in place to keep us where we are. It seems like it's just greater than that. Like nothing matters. None of the principles I practice matters. It seems like all is gone to heck. Am I going to have to shut down my company? Has it really gone to hell in a handbasket? I heard one pastor say that on stage once. The world has gone to hell in a handbasket. He was being comical, but at this point of your business, that's sometimes how it feels. Like, heck, I did every gosh dang thing I could. Is this what hell in a handbasket looks like? Like, is this it? And that's how you feel. Do I need to just screw everything and just go work for somebody somewhere? And it's at this moment you realize, wait a minute, that person who's doing that thing over there is also going through challenges like I'm going through challenges periodically. And they're actually dealing with some of the same stuff that I'm having to deal with. If I go over there, okay, maybe I'll help him do that, but I'm not immune. I won't just be able to split off and not have to deal with these challenges that we're facing. And the ultimate question that you hear ringing in your head during these times is my dream dead? Is the thing that I set out to do, is it gone? Is it impossible? And guys, so back to I'm going to stick to my slideshow here. Again, my name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations and the Vision People team. And we are a translation, interpretation, and consulting firm that helps people all around the world do international business, facilitates manpower needs, and work through project consulting and strategy consulting, and just to help people work through the different stages of their business. And if you would please like our channel, like the video and subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications bell. That would be so encouraging to us, because as I work through building out the content for this channel, I really want to give as much relevant and down-to-earth information to entrepreneurs who are trying to work in their business and grow it over time. My current business that we're operating today is about 11 people at this point. We're a multi-million-dollar company, and we I'm sorry, I just lost my thought here. And we what? And we're looking to grow our reach through who we can connect with and how we can help more people through the content that we can put out from the lessons that we have learned for years and years and years. So that's what this channel is about. That's why we're here today. And I hope that you can really help benefit from the content that we're putting out. Again, if you've seen some of my previous webinars, you might see me a little bit more energetic and a little bit more kind of pizzazzy in some of the content that I'm putting out. But today, because of the seriousness of this content and because of how close to home it hits, I'm really toning it down a little bit, and my jaw is hurting really badly. So I'm going to just make this as applicable as possible, and hopefully that it hits home for you and that you can take some stuff from this and learn how to navigate these challenges that we all have to face as businesses. So one of the most recent times in history when we have seen on a global scale such a terrible and painful business experience was in COVID. During COVID, I just finished building my house with cash. It was a very painful process. I thought that the challenge was over. Like, I had just spent 12 months of my life. Prior to that, I spent 5 years trying to make enough money, to save enough money to build a house. When I hit the 5-year mark, I realized that I had enough money to build it, but only if I did it myself. And so I started to build our home and run our business and build our home. So I worked 6 days a week building and working with our team to continue running our company, and as many hours a day as were available. And then at the end of this, a thing called a pandemic started in the world, and it just knocked the teeth out of our company. And it was terrible, painful uh, situation because I just finished a hard thing, saving up the money. And then I just finished another hard thing, building a house. Like if you're married and you built a house with your spouse, it's like a miracle for you to make it to the end of the building process and stay married. So that's also hard. Plus financing all ourselves, plus building the freaking thing all ourselves. That was so painful. And at the end of that, I was like, okay, God, because I made this sacrifice before, and because I did my job and provide for my family, and I tried my best to lead our company, and I just doing all this stuff and making these principles, making them come to life in my life, that God's going to kind of protect me from things that are going to be harmful. And COVID came, and it was a terrible disaster. I had clients that stopped paying us for 3 months straight. I barely had enough money in the emergency fund for our company to cover that period. And I had gotten behind in a lot of our vendor payments. Uh, we actually found some discrepancies in our books about a month, actually the month I finished our house. Going into COVID, we found some discrepancies in our books, and we had that was so painful. Our accounting staff had misappropriated the dates for when payments needed to be made for a huge chunk of payments, and then COVID hit, and our clients stopped paying, and we had to pay our team. And I just finished our house, and I was like, at that point, it was the end of my rope completely. There was no rope left. Like, what do you do when you're at the end of the rope? You freaking drop off and hit the floor because there's nothing left. The rope is gone. And so I just splatted on the floor. And I thought, God, what? Like, I did all this stuff. I tried to do everything that I could. I thought you were going to protect me from this disaster, and you didn't. Like, what? What the heck do I do? And what we did is we took the next right step, and then we took the next right step, and then we took the next right step, and gradually we grew out of that problem. But it took 2 years after that. It took 2 full years to recover from that situation. And you're like, oh my freaking gosh. And so when you look at business as an entrepreneur and you think that you're going to be immune from challenges, you will not. That's a false narrative. If you go into business with that narrative, and if you maintain that while you're in it, you are going to be sideswiped. You are going to be knocked off your rocker, and you are going to be blown freaking away. You will not survive, because you have to be ready in your mind and your spirit for the next challenges that is going to come. And it's coming like a freaking freight train, and you're going to have to deal with it. And so that's why I'm doing this webinar today, because I want you to be ready for the next challenge that you're going to face. And if we can help you in any way, shape, or form, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to do that. So this is why the webinar is so important. As I put up on the screen, I'm going to cover some strategies and principles that you can apply to your situation, some strategies that I've developed over my 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur. It will help you in two main areas. It will clear your mind, and it will create a plan. And if you have a clear mind and a good plan based on logic and requiring hard work, you can make it through almost anything that you have to go through. Pandemic, financial downturn, building a house, you name it. Like, I didn't even mention the fact that I have 8 kids. Like, most people are like, oh my gosh, I have 4 kids. This is so hard. Like, I have 8 kids, and we really raise them and homeschool them, and we really, do a lot of training for our children and that's also a challenge. But in comparison to some of the other challenges that I face, it's like now it's like whatever. Hey kids, we can do this. So um, the reason I'm doing this is so that you can build a long-term business and that you can too can survive this low period. And I believe you can do it. And I believe you will do it. And hopefully, what I share with you today can help you. All right. By the end of this session, you'll have some practical guidance on leading your team with clarity and transparency, maintaining their trust and motivation during the challenging times. By the end of this, I hope you have some smart and humane strategies to cut costs without compromising your core values or beliefs, and that we have identified um, areas where in our budgets where there's financial waste happening that we just need to work through and remove it as we work through those items and cutting those and how to view some of the expenses so that you can cut them that are quietly draining many of your resources. All right, hopefully we can also understand how we can generate some new revenue streams during this time. Even during the downturns, this is very much a possibility. Opening new sales channel, adding relevant services, and deepening your relationships with current clients. This can all happen during their down period. This determining when and why to cut your salary. This may be something you have to face multiple times. I've had to face this multiple times through my 20 plus years as an entrepreneur, and I'm just sharing with you that that may be a reality for you as well. This has to do with your team's mental and well-being and yours as well, and how to let people go with dignity and respect, preserving relationships, morale, and your company's reputation. I'm going to talk about all these things in this webinar today. So, I spoke with my investment broker this past week, and we was just discussing that 80% of small cap business in the United States are reporting that they are experiencing a much worse first part of the year, first 2 quarters than they projected towards the end of last year. They said that profits were projected to be much higher. The trajectory into a much more profitable year was going to be much better, and it's simply not there. And so my first comment on this is that you need to know that you're not alone. It's affecting you and multiple other businesses, many other businesses. In fact, the number he gave me, I was kind of shocked by. 80% of the other companies so far this year have been very surprised by the low profitability that they've experienced. So if that's you, you're not alone. One of my industries, the translation, especially document translation, over the past 10 years, has experienced major disruptions. So document translation, if you can imagine, that's one of the things that our company started doing. We do much more now, as I mentioned: consulting, strategy, human resource management, and those type of things, where we help people with international consulting and manpower. But as we started in the document translation world, there was no Google Translate when we started. So Google Translate came about. CAT tools, they're computer aided translation tools other than Google Translate came about, and we had to implement those into our workflows. And one of the newest ones that we've been working through over the past few years has been the AI revolution that we've been working to integrate into our workflows. And it's just and it never ends. So in my business alone, these tools that come into the marketplace, they wipe out vast requirements for the service that you provide in the way that you previously provided it. But they do open incredible opportunities for you to provide that same service, just in a different way moving forward. So you have to be ready to learn and apply. And this is something that's just been a part of our reality for that area of our business, and it's at times wiped out huge sections of revenue as we've scaled up with the new technology. And so this is something that's happened in my career multiple times, and I would just want to you to understand that it's going to happen in yours. And I'm not trying to be it's going to like rain on anybody's parade here, but it is going to be challenging. It's going to happen. So I want you to be prepared for that. So I'm sorry. I think yes. And so I just want to share. Uh, as we went through those three huge market disruptions in our business, and then a big thing like COVID happens. You're like, how the heck do you even survive? Like, how do you make it through that type of those types of events in business? And that's what this webinar is about. So the very first principle I want to share with you, because this is something. So unapologetically, I'm a Christian, and I talk about this and other videos. But when God comes to visit people, every single time, when God comes to visit people, He says the first thing He says is, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." When God was in the ship with His disciples, you guys maybe know the story when Jesus was in the ship and He was sleeping and His disciples were there, and the boat's going like this, and water's coming to the boat, and they're like, "Gosh, Jesus, freaking wake up! Like, we are all going to die. We are literally going to die. We're going to be shark bait." And they wake Jesus up. I always just try to like visualize this. And I'm like, how was he sleeping? Maybe he just liked the rocky motion. I don't know. Anyways, so they wake him up, and he's like, and he wakes up and he commands the sea, right, to be still. Like, be still. And he looks at his disciples and says, "And you faithless, like you renegade people who don't believe." And he really chastised them for not for being fearful, when it's like, "I am literally the creator of all that is in the boat, and you're still afraid." And I want to kind of deliver this to you in the way that hopefully you can just write down, maybe make a few mental notes for this, and you can apply it. So the first principle here is practice, is for you to principle and practice. I'm sorry, for you to work through, is when fear hits hard, facts are your friend. Always remember that phrase. When fear hits hard, facts are your friend. Now, write yourself a report with the facts that you know. I've been a lifelong journaler. I've journaled from the age of 10 years old, and I have many journals, and a lot of my business journey has been jotted down in the journals that I keep, and some of the reports and many different things that I've worked through. And write yourself a report based on the facts that you know. And as you write, you will start to understand some very important things. Like, most likely, no one's going to die, and you're not probably not going to die. And maybe you're in a really bad situation. If you're in a war zone and you're like leading a team of SEALs into a really bad environment, somebody might die. That's not applicable in this situation. You need to talk to a commander about that one, what to do in that scenario. But in this one, as you're operating an entrepreneurial type business, no one's going to die. Okay. You might be fearful, and you start at this point to take stock. What am I afraid of? And a lot of times you will start to understand that you're afraid of a lot of things that you don't know if it will happen, or if it's possible to happen. You're afraid of looking stupid in front of people who you want to not look stupid in front of, which is nothing short of pride. Okay. And I will say that in business and being a leader of a company, over time, you will have to crush your pride in order to be an excellent leader. And it will be required of you from time to time to super crush your pride in order for you to get to the next level in leadership. Leaders cannot be prideful. You have to be transparent, open, and willing to share. And so when fear hits hard, facts are your friend. Write yourself a report based on the facts that you know. Clarify the reality and get what is inside of you out in connection with the facts that you know. If you are feeling that you, like, I've been operating this business and I'm afraid that people in my community are going to be look down on me because I've had a down month or down year, or my sales this year are worse than they were the previous years. I'm afraid. You write those things out, and you'll be able to start. Then once you write them out, you'll be able to start processing them with truth, with what you know to be good logic and reason. And so I know this sounds basic, but try to remember this phrase: when fear hits hard, facts are your friend, and write a report. And once you write the report based on these facts, you're going to start to see a lot. Like, so many times I've written this down where I've understood that the thing that I'm afraid of is more about me and my and how I look than it is about the reality of the situation. I want to be somebody who only has a company that goes up and to the right. But the truth is, it's not always that way. If you take the S&P 500, and if I had a slide, I would pop it up on the screen, but I don't. But if you would take the S&P 500 and you would just look at the top 500 of the companies in the United States, and you would take the chart over a 5-year period, you will see that it goes up and it goes down and it goes up, and sometimes it goes way down and it goes up, but over time, over the long term, it's up and to the right. And so many entrepreneurs think that we are immune to those downs. The biggest companies in America are not, which means they're the biggest companies in the world. They're not immune to it. Why would you and I be immune to it? We're not. The entire market has ups and downs. And so that's one of the facts that kind of that gives me an ontic referent, just this silly fancy way of saying point of reference. When I'm getting foggy about why my company should not always be up and to the right, look at the other companies in the world, and you will very quickly find out that it is not always up and to the right, and sometimes it stays down for quite a long time. Just look at what happened in 2008, and you will see a very low dip that stayed for a lot of months before we started to have an upturn. All right, so facts are your friend. Write your report when fear hits hard. Define what being alive means. Now, I remember one of the greatest speakers that I've heard talk about this subject, and he talks about the infinite and finite game, and that's Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek, he's an incredible speaker, and if you don't have some of his books, I have some books of his on my shelf back here. Go pick them up. But he talks about the infinite and finite game of business, and people who are in the game of business for a specific objective. Those are the ones who don't really last, because the game ultimately is an infinite game. If you're in the game, you're in the game. Part of being in the game is just to be in the game. And sometimes that helps us to understand what alive in business means. And so you need to define what being alive in business means. Are you in this only to have up and to the right moments? Because if you're in business only to have up and to the right moments, which means, okay, maybe I didn't explain that. I just want to make sure I explain it. On a graph, if things are going up and to the right, and it's talking about financials, it's typically a profitable scenario. Okay, just for a basic understanding of what I'm talking about when I say up and to the right. And so if you got in business to only have a chart that was up and to the right, and then you find out after being in business for 5 years that sometimes it's not up and to the right always. Over time it is, but sometimes you have up and to the right, and then you go back, and it's like a reset for 2 years before you get back, of a 2-year period of business before you actually get up to higher sales volumes. And that can be a reality for you. And if you're not ready for that reality, then you are likely going to fail in your business, simply for the fact that you're not prepared for that, and you can't handle seeing that dip in your company. Some of the wealthiest people in the world, for example, they have said that Bill Gates, he said, I want to have a net zero outcome upon death. Like, when I die, the billions and billions and billions that I've created in my lifetime, I want it to be a net zero. I'm like, what? Why would you ever do that? I mean, why would you build such an incredible amount of wealth, and then you want it dissipated within, like, he has a specific amount of years that he wants all the entire amount of wealth that he has created for himself for his lifetime to be dissipated within a few years. I don't agree with everything Bill Gates says. Obviously, he has a completely different worldview. But the point is, he's not in business to only have massive windfalls. He's in business to be in the game. He's in technology to be in technology. And he's been in it for a really long time, and he stayed relevant for a really, really long time in a market that changes instantly, that changes every moment. A new technology is developed. This guy is freaking old, and he's still in the technology market, and his company is still a leader in the market. How? Because he's in the game to be in the game. So being alive sometimes doesn't mean you're in place number one. I mean, he's got competitors out there that are doing better. You can think of Apple, right? They've done better some years, and sometimes Microsoft has done better some years. And these two massive competitors in the marketplace, but they're in the game to be in the game. They're not in the game to win, because they understand that being alive, operating, means that you're able to continue on another day. So in the Bible, we see the verse that says, "A wise man leaves inheritance to his children's children." And you're like, well, if I don't leave an inheritance, money and a house and some real estate to my children's children, then I'm not a wise man. But it's not only about wealth and riches. They are part of that blessing. But inheritance to our children's children comes in ways of a peaceful, well-lived life, a noble character, personality, noble carrying out of my life as I have done my business. I've treated people with honesty and integrity. I've gone over and above where I could go over and above. I've done my very best to be as transparent as I could. I've tried my hardest, and it actually wasn't good enough, but I didn't give up. And those kind of characteristics passed down from generation to generation to our children, those are an inheritance worth far more than the real estate and riches that we could give to them. And so there's this kind of distance, this disconnect between us sometimes. Okay, I need to, even in the Christian world, I need to be able to give a wealth to my children's children. Well, you may not be able to, but the most wealth that you can give them is a life well lived, intentionally doing something meaningful for people you care about. And if you're able to stay in that game for a long period of time, for the whole of your lifetime, in some capacity, you've basically won at life. You're not a failure. And so I think this is very helpful for us as we start to understand some of the things that we need to kind of take on, the principles that we need to have in our own hearts and our minds as we work through dealing with going through the negatives, the lows, the deep, painful cuts in our business. In business, staying in the game is more important than current revenue. And I don't think I can emphasize that factor enough. You being able to stay in the game is more important than your current status and your current revenue. And guys, again, I'm talking a little bit quiet today, and I'm hoping that I'm able to keep you engaged with my ability, that my way of speaking. Just because today, again, my jaw is really hurting me, and I just want to make sure that I'm relaying this, not relaying this in a less than a way that is less than it should be relayed. And so, all right, carrying on. So in business, staying in the game is more important than your current revenue. If you can stay in the game, live to fight another day, you have another opportunity to be able to succeed in the future. If you don't, again, if you're not prepared for that, if the mentality of being in the game to be in the game, you're setting yourself up for failure and for great disappointment throughout your entrepreneurial career. So this is sometimes just being in the game is enough. All right, so define what being alive means. So being alive, whether you're 3 or 3,000 people in your company, it means working towards a worthy ideal or goal. That journey is part of what being alive is. Being able to get up, fight again tomorrow. I've done the best I could today. I treated as much and my team as well as I could with integrity, even at times they disagreed as with my attempt to be as like. So here's something, guys, that I'm just like this little moment here that I want to share with you. So in business, you have to be both transparent and you have to maintain a spirit of strength, discipline, and high morale towards a vision. And sometimes those two things are kind of juxtaposed to each other, and you just have to make your best judgment. Meaning, sales are down and times are tough, but you don't want everybody to be completely freaking out and afraid. So, how do you deliver this in a way so that you get their attention? You make sure they understand the reality, but you don't spread fear and dissension throughout the whole company. Because as soon as you say something like, guys, we're having trouble, immediately everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're all getting fired. Somebody start digging a well because we're going to have to find a place to get water from. Like, so like, wait a minute. So you have to be very careful in your business. And sometimes people on your team are not going to be able to understand that the way you deliver the message, or they might not feel like it was as transparent as you could be because they would have said it differently or they would have done it differently. And you're going to face that, and it's going to be in a time when like this, when things are rough, and it's like, man, I thought I was trying to be transparent, I was trying not to scare anybody too much, and I was trying to get enough truth, but it just didn't like it. I wasn't able to make that connection with people, and hurt some people, hurt some feelings, and that's going to be part of your journey too. And you, as a leader of your organization, are going to have to bear that. So when you go through that, uh, just be expecting that. So all right, so working towards an ideal, worthy ideal or goal, the journey, and being in the game. That's what being alive is. All right, serve people. This includes a lot of different things, and it also is involved with being alive. So this helps you just to kind of further extrapolate what being alive means in business. Having the hard conversations with your team, releasing your team when you can't support them. This is also part of this. Uh, Providing clarity of the vision of where you're going, providing hope in hard times, not without logic, but with the logic. You can't just say, so a prime example is this is the Stockdale paradox. When Admiral Stockdale, he was in a prison camp. Maybe some of you who have heard this story before, if you've watched a few of my videos, I mention it once in a while. But anyways, Admiral James Stockdale, he was shot down over Vietnam, and he was in the Hanoi Hilton. And in the Hanoi Hilton, uh, okay, many years later, he was released. He got out of there, and he got into. He's a teacher at a prestigious university in the States, and one of the leadership teachers were asking him, "Look, how did you survive?" Well, I maintained the hope that in the end we would prevail, and this would become a defining moment in my life, no matter how dark it gets. And then he said, "Well, who didn't make it out?" The questioner asked him. He said, "Well, that's easy. The people who didn't make it out were the optimists." Like, wait a minute, what? I thought you just said that you believe that you knew that eventually that you would get out and this would become a defining moment of your life. He said, yeah, but you can't confuse that reality that is in the distant future with your current reality of today. You have to accept the facts that exist. He's like, I would tell my people, I would tell the people in the prison camp, that the other prisoners are like, we're not getting out by Christmas. Deal with it. He said, the ones who died, the ones who didn't make it out, they're the ones who said, well, we're going to be out by Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving came, Thanksgiving left, didn't make it out. Then somebody'd say, okay, well, not by Thanksgiving, but we're going to be out by Christmas. And Christmas came, Christmas went, and they were still there, and they died of a broken heart. And so there's sometimes it feels like a very thin line that you have to walk. You have to provide the hopes in the hard times, but not without logic. So sometimes I've said to my team, look, guys, this season kind of sucks. And here's the numbers. We're going to be very transparent here. This is what we can support. This is the number we have to hit in order to stay in business and to keep this team the same size. And by the way, if we don't hit this numbers for a few months, that's okay. We've got a reserve, we got an emergency fund. And if we don't hit it for a few more months, I'm going to go without my own salary. But because I've set myself up, I'm working very diligently and intentionally year after year after year to set myself up financially to be able to weather a storm like that. It's not pleasant. It's not what I want to do. But anyways, it's part. It may be required. And guys, I don't know if it's going to be 2 months, and I don't know if it's going to be 12 months before this really turns around. But I do know that if we keep at this, that over the next period, we're going to eventually see an uptick, and we will, if we commit ourselves to the right activities, to serve people well, to prosper over time, introduce new products into our service line, and do our very best to cultivate and develop the relationships with the people that we work most closely with. However, I can't tell you how long it's going to be, but we will get out, and we will get to the other side, which is going to be massively profitable and a whole lot of fun. But it's going to take some sacrifice. And so that transparency will help you build a lot more better morale in your team as you're working through these challenges. So you and I, as we work through this, we must. I thought, man, maybe I shouldn't say we must, or maybe like you have to, because then people are going to be thinking I'm pointing their finger at them and saying, you must do this. But then I just said, you know what? Actually, it is something that we must do. We actually must operate on time-tested principles. We actually must do that. Like, it's not an option. We actually must, in hard times, align, live out our alignment. And what I mean by company alignment, I'll talk about that in a minute. Your alignment with your time-tested principles will shine in the toughest times of your business. And that's what we're talking about today. If you are not aligned with those principles, it will condemn you to your incorrect view or misunderstanding of time-tested principles. Actually, when I put this slide together, these two bottom points were separated because the singular thing you must do is operate on time-tested principles. But as you operate on those time-tested principles, you will either shine, or it will condemn. Those time-tested principles will work against you and condemn your activity because you incorrectly viewed them or misunderstood them. So you and I have the opportunity to change in these moments. And now that's something that's been a hard lesson for me as an entrepreneur over my lifetime, because I've always been a hard charger. I've always been a hard worker, and just even working in seasons just completely without any kind of view of anything peripheral going on, just focus, head down, getting stuff done. And when somebody said, you know what, you make the choice to change, you just change. When somebody says, when they describe a leader, almost everybody in the auditorium agrees that a leader has discipline, that they are kind, that they are faithful, that they have high integrity, that they work to be a better communicator, that they're learners, that they are diligent, that they show up, that they, and the list goes on. Every single one of those, every gosh dang last one, is a choice that you and I make. And you can just change one day. And it really is you and I deciding to change. So it might be a requirement for you at this season of your business. If you're out of alignment with a principle, change. Change so that you can align with that principle and then charge forwards in a way that will work and cause you to be able to be prosperous. All right. A great example is, I remember at the beginning of the slideshow where I talked about you as a person questioning some of your core beliefs, and I've questioned them at times. And by the way, so many Christians feel bad about questioning sometimes going through a weak season in their faith. And I'm kind of amazed by that because, like, God can handle your doubts and weakness of faith. He's not. It doesn't shock him. It's not. He's not worried about that. Like, if you have a weak period in your life, if you're kind of if you're kind of like shaky in your faith, that's okay. God can handle that, and you kind of need to know that. Like, if there's questions in your heart and your mind about about the uh, durability of a belief or a principle or truth that you thought to be true, and now it's being tested and questioned, that's okay. Like, God can completely handle a doubt and questions, and I think they're very healthy, both in strong Christian lives and in people's life who are just trying to live well. So being debt free. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned that questioning your values. Like, there's been times when I was like, it would just be so much. It seems like it would just be so much easier, and for me, because I believe. Okay, now listen. Debt is not a sin, but I definitely believe that if at all possible, you should avoid it. Okay, and the Bible says many places where avoid it at all costs. But it's not a sin, and I just want to make sure I put that out there. But for me, I got a credit card one time when I was 21, and I used it, and I felt so bad that I used it. I chopped it up and threw it away and burned it. And then I called the company and closed closed the card because I felt so convicted about it. But that was just being me. So, but since that point, I've never used any type of credit. And so, when I've gone through different challenges in my life, or for example, when we were building our house, like, why don't I just take a loan and build the house like normal people do? It's like, because I don't believe that it's a good thing, and I don't believe that it's going to impact my life well. And because I've gone through so many ups and downs in my life in previous years, not being in debt has saved me many times. The principle that God said is true was true in those times, even though now it looks like it would be so much more convenient. I was like, all right, God, but now I have to wait longer. Now I have to work harder. Now I have to be more creative. Being debt free is a principle, and I can't argue with it. I can have an incorrect view of it, but I can't argue with it. And the benefits, you can weather bad storms, really bad storms in your life. And bad storms will come. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade here, but they are coming. And your ability to be prepared in your life financially for them by having a big pile of money there to deal with that storm makes all the difference as to whether or not you're going to be able to survive it. So, if you want to live a life in alignment with this principle, and if you want to actually have a business that's in alignment with this principle, then you're going to have to follow it, which means you're going to have to make money and then save a big chunk of it to the side because the storm is coming. And then once that happens, you will have the benefits from it. You will be ready to capitalize on opportunities, and you will be ready. You will be forced to be very, very creative. And that's one of the things in my life that's kind of sustained and built our company, is the fact that as you work through applying a principle, the benefits that come out of the application of that principle create a better person in you. And that's kind of one of the things with the biblical principles. That's what they always do, even though they're hard to apply. They make you better along the way, even though they're vastly harder to implement and to make a part of your life. So the principle is be debt free. Okay, it helps us to weather terrible storms. So if you are working through the storms in your business, this is probably going to be an area that you really should pay a lot of attention to. And as you work into just knowing that what lies ahead is a challenge, and you need to be prepared for that financially. One of the ways of doing that is to be debt free. And so implement a system in your life. You can even talk to us about how you can create a strategy for your business to be debt free. And we'll help you with that. We'd love to help you with that. Because that's one of the biggest things in my life and in our business that has kept us safe when things got tough, and they're going to get tough. Again, that's the reality of all of our lives and our business. We can't separate our business from our life. In business, it will be tough. In life, it will be tough at some point or another. We're going to have an aunt or an uncle with cancer. I'm not projecting anything evil on anyone. I'm just stating the reality. You know this is true. Somebody in your life, they got sick for no reason, and it just didn't seem fair. And somebody passed away. I had a good friend of mine. He passed away a few years ago, and he had 5 children. And I was like, God, just makes absolutely no sense. So bad things, challenges are going to happen. By the way, there is a happy ending to his story. His wife, just last year, she got remarried to a great gentleman, and their family continues to prosper. So it's not all bad, but sometimes bad things happen, and we have to get through them to get to other bad things, to get to other the other side of those things in life. So application of the principle is vital, and so you can't throw away your principle during hard time. You have to dig in to the principle that you know to be true. All right. This is something that was sent to me by one of my team members, and I cherish it deeply. I haven't read this in a very, very long time, and it's been a really, I think maybe, gosh, I don't know. I think that I've seen this before or pieces of it before, and maybe you know this one, but I think it really kind of resonates with the point I'm trying to make here. Um, Create clarity with the team and prepare them for the arena. And I'm just going to read it really quickly here. Hopefully, you can see it on the screen. If you can't, I'm just going to read it out loud. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out the strong men that stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. But the credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at the worst, if he fails, at least while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat. And that is a quote by Theodore Roosevelt. And he said it well. You're going to be in the arena. You're going to be dealing with the challenges of, at his time, government, right? Or all the other different things he was dealing with. And being alive is being in the game, actually doing something worthwhile and participating in this incredible journey. And if you're willing to do that, sometimes that's what it creates. That's what it takes to weather the storm. Now, how do we create company alignment for our business to help us weather the storms? And I'm not going to go all over all the questions, and I'd like you to go and see the series that I created on this. But there is a series that I've made on answering the 6 questions in business, and it comes from the book The Advantage, and it talks about creating alignment in your company. And this talks about clear established vision, purpose, operating values, among other things. But these are the 3 main things that it goes through. And if you have these established, clear, visible, and you're able to communicate these consistently to your team daily, during the storm, it will guide you through. These are the principles that will help you live through the battles in the arena. You will stay in the arena. You will be continually able to fight because you have the clear and established vision for your company. You have a clear and established purpose, and you have operating values that guide you every step of the way. And so, again, I've made a complete series on this, how to do that. So you can see, just go watch that video series. They're in a setting very similar to this one. I did a webinar series just exactly on this. And this is the time when those matter more than anything, because the going is going to get tough. It is tough. And now you need to remember why in the world it is that you're doing this in the first place. So the clear and established vision, the purpose, and the operating values on which you operate your business matter now more than ever. And they will come to life in you and in your business as you work through this very low period. This is a very important strategy for dealing with the low periods in your business. And I know it sounds a little bit soft and squishy. Well, establish vision, purpose, but it does get very much down to tactical application. I talk about it in those videos as I go through the questions. So I urge you to go take a look at those, watch through them if you're working on developing the strategy and values for your business. And so this is the thing, that massive thing that helps you to get through the challenging times. All right, not pie in the sky, but this clarity leads to a plan. So do the prep work. If you're in it right now, and you're going through a really tough season in your business, there's no better time today than to start. It's just like planting a tree. When was the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When is the next best time? Today. So this is the day when you go back to the vision for your organization, for why you're in business, create the values, create the alignment with your team, and you work through it together. These are the times when it's most visible, and they sustain you when nothing else does. And remember, we're staying in the game to be in the game. And why are we doing that? And that's your vision. And where are we going? Establish alignment before. So if you're not in the thick of it, now is the time to establish alignment. Because when the time comes, you're already connected to your core reasons for existing, and you're able to fight that much harder. Why did the people fight so hard when they burned the ships? Because they knew that there was no going back. The ships were burned. So we have a complete purpose that we must win and conquer the enemy. Because otherwise, we're just going to starve out here in the middle of the nothingness, and we're going to dwindle away and die. So we must win. So they go forward conquering. So this is how you stay motivated. This is how you motivate your team and encourage ownership in your team. And this is another tool your team needs you to have to help weather the storm. That's alignment throughout your company based on the 6 questions that I talked about in the previous slide, helping you to be able to create the strategy, alignment, and the next right step. Again, when you're going through the storm, it's the next right step each day that matters. Based on all the tools and resources you have available to you, the next right step, and then the next right step, and then the next right step. And you just keep going on that direction. All right, so what are some things that you're probably going to have to face? And I've faced them multiple times. Again, like I mentioned in my career as an entrepreneur of 20 plus years, faced them multiple times in multiple businesses. All right, so you're going to have to make a diagnosis of things you're spending on. So it means you're going to have a budget, which means if you're actually if you're operating a debt-free company, it's even more likely you already have a budget, because part of being a debt-free company means that you have to have a plan for your finances. Otherwise, life happens without a plan, and you don't have no money at the end of the month. All right, so you have to diagnose what you're spending money on. And so many people don't even realize some of the current things that they're spending money on that they don't use anymore. And so I put in practice in our business the practice of reviewing every so often, every quarter, all of the subscriptions that we pay, to make sure that those subscriptions are still relevant for our business today. And if you haven't, this is a very good area for you to go get all of your reports for your spending, for your monthly spending for your company, and look through all the subscriptions and tools that you're using to make sure that those are still very applicable expenses for your company. So you can delay expenses as well. These are challenging, but I want to kind of cut out this section here, because cutting benefits and rescheduling vacations, having your team members go on vacations because to use unpaid leave. The primary goal here is that you stay alive as a company. People are afraid of this section so often, many times because, of course, rightly so, right? I don't condemn anyone, but rightly so because everybody wants to be able to offer their team benefits. Everybody wants to be able to um, make sure everybody can take their leave when they want to take their leave. Well, most business anyway, good business owners want to be able to do that. But this is an area that if you have the right team members working on your team, and you are the right kind of team member, when you have to cut in these areas, your team will be able to manage it. They will work with, they will be able to help you work through this, because I've seen companies so afraid to make changes in this area that it's like one of the last things that they would even touch possible, because if they make a change, they will have such groanings throughout their company that they can't make a change in this area. But the reality is, it might be an area that you have to make a change in, or a pause in, or a reduction in, or something uh, unpleasant. Make sure it's always make sure it's legal. By the way, whatever you're doing, make sure that you get legal counsel if there's any question. But when you have to make cuts in areas of benefits and vacations and so on and so forth, or rescheduling things, if you have the right kind of team members on your team, you will never have a problem in this area. Now, that goes to another series of videos that I did on hiring. You can go back and watch that entire series, how to hire really well, so that you get team members that when the going gets tough, they don't moan and groan and complain and do why me and have all these why me sessions, because they realize that for the greater good for the entire team, to get through this together, we're going to all have to contribute. And if we're going to all contribute in a very powerful way, then it's going to, like, if ownership has to cut, our department's probably going to have to cut, and we're going to have to be okay with that. And so I just encourage you, as you work through the challenges of your business, sometimes cuts will need to be made in this area, delaying expenses, cutting benefits, rescheduling vacations. And you need to know that that's okay as a business owner, and you may be required to do that. And if you have the right type of team members on your team, and you've done excellence in your hiring process, and it's in alignment with the 6 questions about the alignment series that I talked about, when you go through this type of situation, you'll be okay. And you'll be able to make it to the next incredible period in your business where you prosper beyond your wildest imagination. So, third thing, negotiate vendors' payments and term, and let them know what you're facing. There's been times in our business when I had to go talk to our vendors. Remember that time during COVID? We just finished building the house, and then we got into the COVID, and at the same time, we found out there was a huge discrepancy in our books. And we changed a bunch of stuff. Some of the best financial practices that I currently operate came from that time. But we had to, I literally wrote every single vendor in our company a personal email saying, look, this is the situation that we're in. I realize that we screwed up big. And we're going to pay you because we're faithful to pay people, but we can't do it in the previously negotiated way. Can you work with me in good faith to help me work through this scenario? And I laid it out. I told them the whole thing. It was very transparent. And every one of my vendors came back to us with a very positive message. Like, you know what? We understand. You guys have been great to work with. We love working with your team. And we're sorry to hear that you're going through a challenge. And oh, by the way, we've been there too. And so we'll extend to you grace. So many people are afraid to go to their vendors and negotiate payments. But sometimes transparency in exactly what's happening, not saying, well, I'm not going to pay you, or just completely ignoring them altogether and not even responding to their messages and emails when they're like, hey, you're supposed to be paying us and you haven't paid us, what's going on? And you just kind of ignore it because you don't want to deal with it. No, do the contrary. Go, and as soon as you find out that you might have trouble, go to the vendors and talk to them and say, look, guys, this is the scenario. It's tough right now. We've been in business. We've done work together a long time. We trust you. You trust us. Can you work with us here? And 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to work through, negotiate vendors' terms and payments with them. And it's about transparency and being real with them. Too many people in business treat it as some kind of transactional corporate kind of methodology, where all of this is kind of like professional. It's not professional to talk about reality, when the truth is that people are starving for real, genuine businessmen and businesswomen out there, just to be genuine and kind to them and share the challenges that they're facing in their life and in their business with them. And if you do this, you will find deeper relationships with your vendors, and you will probably be able to make a little bit of a less of a financial burden on yourself and your company to navigate the challenge you're working through. So budget cuts is a very powerful area that can help you work through it. First, you have to actually have a budget, know where your money's going, and then look through that and do the things that I just spoke about. All right. This is a big one, guys, because a couple times throughout my career, we've had to do this, and cut your own salary if possible or if needed. Now, if you're in business and you've been operating business for 10 years, I think that you should have some financial strategy in your life that would allow you to weather the storm. So if you're operating a budget for a debt-free company, you obviously will have an emergency fund. And if you're operating a debt-free personal life, you will have an emergency fund. And if you don't, it's unwise. The Bible also says that. It's like, dang it, Bible's saying all kind of stuff, dropping the Bible on us all over the place today. Just God's and grandma's common sense ways of handling life and money and business, okay? And sometimes we just need God or grandma to help us understand what the next right step is, because it's just about logic, reason, and common sense. So much of what exists today is lacking common sense. But as an owner, I do believe it is your responsibility to set yourself up in a financial situation to where you can, if required, take a reduction in pay for a period. You should be able to do that. And if you can't, again, we can help you with the financial side of planning and the strategy for that, and understanding how to do budgets and operate them in your business. I've been doing this for many years now. In fact, that's one of my strongest areas now, is financial operations. And if you have to cut your salary, you need to be able to do that as an owner. And so it may be a period of your business for a specific strategic purpose that you could also need to pause your salary. And so I would encourage you that if that is required, that you be able to do that, and that you put yourself in a position that you are able to do that. Now, the importance of being able to do that is multifold. Instead of just firing people, you can also set the example. Like, look, I have been teaching. So if you're a leader, I think you should be teaching your team how to do some section in their life better. For example, goal setting, financial planning, time management, working through the different elements of their life and improving them as you get to know them really, really well and closely. And as you do all of those things, you will help them be better in those areas. And so instead of just firing someone because they have heard you preach and teach about all of this stuff for all of these years, now is the time for them to see what you have taught. So the best way to train our children, and by the way, I have 8 children, so I know a little bit about training children, is for them to see you doing something well, to see you doing something right. More is caught in child raising than taught. More is caught than taught. And so same goes with your team. If you're leading your team and you've been teaching them, look, guys, it's going to be tough sometime in the future, so you need to have an emergency fund, enough for you to live through 3 to 6 months. Okay. Well, if a bad period in your business comes and you as a leader don't have any money so you can live through a 3 to 6 month period, what does that say about your leadership? It says that you don't practice what you preach. If you don't practice what you preach, you're a hypocrite. And people should be angry because you are a hypocrite, because nobody can believe you're a hypocrite. So make sure that you put yourself in a position as a leader, as the owner of a company, to be able to take that pressure off of your organization if needed for a very specific for a period of time. And that will help you as a leader set the example instead of just firing people completely when things get a little rough. All right, the importance of keeping the engine running. As you work through the different challenges in business, sometimes the biggest chance you have of success is to make it through to the next step. The absolute fundamental ability to prosper over time is sometimes just making it through the deep downturns in your business and being able to wait longer than anybody else while the storm blows over. And so the importance of keeping your engine running may require you to cut your own salary back. And this will help you to really go through the season of a downturn. Sometimes being able to outlast a condition is your biggest strength because you're doing the right things, you're making the right investments, you're distributing the content, you're delivering the goods, you're building relationships with your client. But everything takes time, lots and lots of time. And if you put all the stuff in the pot and it's cooking, sometimes it just has to be cooked longer. And you have to be able to weather that storm. And so being able to do that, you're going to have to create a financial situation for yourself to be able to weather that storm with your team. So sometimes being able to outlast the conditions is your biggest strength. All right, so letting people go with honor. This is obviously one of the last things on the slideshow because it's painful, it's embarrassing, it's crushing, it can be the breaking of relationships between you and your team. It has a high potential for stress and pain and suffering that you never wanted to be a reality for anyone in your business when you got into business. When you decide to let people go, it should be one of the hardest decisions that you have to make in business. It absolutely should. And it still is to this day for me. It's one of the absolute hardest decisions that I have to make. One of the ones that I will try to push off to the very end of any possible scenario to let people go. But I will say this, when it is required, you must do it, and you must do it with honor. So when you've done everything in your power to move the needle, and you're continuing to do it, by the way, you plan to be out of the current situation, and you're just not. And you cannot, in good faith, give the timeline for when the situation will improve and carry those, and you don't have the resources to do the further investment. Then you must let people go. A good friend of mine says, God can do math, and so do you have to. And so you'd have to do math also. And sometimes that's painful. That's a painful reminder. God can do math. Well, I'm not making this, I got the team, I trained them, I got everybody on the boat. We're working hard, we're doing a lot of stuff. We haven't made the sales for this period, and it's really tough. Well, we've closed some deals, we've developed some new relationships, we're increasing our use of technology, we're able to do more, and we're doing stuff better and faster than we've ever done. But it's still not happening yet, and we still don't have the resources. And so you're like, okay, well, let's reduce the other expenses. Let's do some creative things, and for the next few months, we'll reduce these things, and we'll be able to float ourselves forwards. And so you do that for 3 or 4 months, and then you look at the things again, and you're still working, and there's still opportunity in the future, and you're still working hard to do everything, and you still haven't made more sales. You still at the same. Well, you're making sales enough to cover a certain amount, but you're not able to go beyond that. and you realize that every month for the last few months, you're operating outside of your total income and you're starting to eat into your emergency fund. And at this point, you have to say, all right, the facts are that we cannot, like, this is the number. This is why the budgeting and everything is so important, because you need to know exactly the number and be communicating that with your team. If we have to have $100,000 of sales this month to pay everyone, they need to know that. If it's 50,000, I don't know, whatever number it is for you, they need to know the total number. And as you have explained this to them over a long period of time, like, this is the number, guys. We have to hit that number in order for everybody to stay here. We have to hit that number in order for everybody to stay here. And we've done this for month after month after month, and we still haven't made it. Then you have to make the call. You have to pull the trigger. You cannot continue on in good faith and honorably say, the future will be better, without dealing with the current reality. Now, if you've gone through this period for a period of months, I would say just up to 6 months, and you do not see a vast improvement, and you're not sure when the improvement's going to happen, even though you know it's going to happen, you have to decide. And you have to decide to let people go. So how do you do that? Take the average sales for the year. If your months are up and down, maybe you have 20,000 one month, you have 50,000 the next, and 80,000 the next, and 30,000 the next, and 100,000 and 150,000, 250,000. So if it's up and down like that, then you take the average profit that you have for the period, for the last 6 months, for example. You say, all right, so we have this month in profit. So you have to know your numbers again. I want to make sure I beat that in. You have to know the numbers. And then you say, all right, this is the number. This is our average for the period. Take a period that's long enough. So for example, I would say 6 months, not less than 4. And say, all right, this is the number. Maybe it's 50,000 in your profit line. That's how much you have to operate. Maybe your total sales are 150,000 or something like that. I don't know, whatever the numbers are for you in your industry. And you're like, okay, guys, we didn't hit that 3 months in a row. Now we're starting to make these cuts. We're starting to do these adjustments. And okay, let's continue and see how that goes. Okay, that hasn't worked. Our sales haven't gone up. So I'm taking a cut as a leader of my company for a couple more months. Okay, now we're at the stage where we've done all this stuff. We still have got an optimistic future. It just hasn't happened yet. And we don't know when exactly it's going to happen. It's gonna, but we just don't know when. And we can't argue with the reality that the numbers just aren't there. We have to address the reality and say, okay, we're here. This is the profit. This is the confines within which we have to work. Now, take your leadership team, look at the overall picture of the company, and decide who your company cannot live without. And you have to be it's painful, because obviously you can't live without any of it. But the numbers demand you decide. And so you must sit down and decide. As a leader of your organization, you must decide. Get the number, the total amount of money going out, less than the total amount of money coming in for your salaries. Make the decision on who you have to cut and act immediately. Don't delay. Act immediately. Mistakes that people make when releasing team members: a lack of clarity and transparency. Again, your perspective on what clarity and transparency, and some people in your team's perspective on what clarity and transparency look like, may be slightly different. And there is that danger. And as a leader, you're going to have to accept that could be a reality and just deal with it. But clarity and transparency are the biggest mistake that you make as a leader. If you have been saying month after month after month after month to the team, we have to hit that number to keep the current team. We have to hit that number to keep the current team. We have to hit that number to keep the current team, and you still haven't hit it month after month after month. This clarity will help your team understand, okay, we don't get to go against logic. We have to accept logic, and the ultimate outcome is our team must be smaller. And so they know that. That's one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make is clarity and transparency. If the team is completely unaware that it's a possibility, then it's on you. If you've done your job well, it should not be a surprise. It's always painful, by the way. Always painful. Always a situation that we don't want to have to deal with. Never a good point, our finest moment. But it should never be a complete surprise to everyone. When you deliver the news, be ready for the emotional surge it will cause. Like, obviously, this person will be success. No, I'm not only talking about that, by the way. I'm talking about you as a leader and me as a leader. I also, yes, they're going to have an emotional surge and it's going to be a challenge from their side, but it's also going to be from your side. And you need to be self-aware enough to understand that that is a part of this. It's a part of this grieving process. Because you literally grieve the loss of a team member, because that wasn't why you hired them. That wasn't why you got on this journey. That wasn't why you invited them into your vision to create something amazing. You invited them to prosper together, and that reality feels like it's been snatched from you for this season. And you have to look at that in the face and deal with it. So you will have a surge of emotions. And if you don't, you need to find some, because then that means you're just emotionless and you need to learn how to be more human. And your team will have the same. And so I would encourage you to make sure that you be prepared for the surge of emotions that it will cause. And many leaders are not prepared for that. And they lose focus and they lose heart. And they lose heart in the future of their business because they weren't ready for the surge that would afflict them when they had to deal with the pain of letting people go. You must act immediately. This is a mistake that people make. They understand what they have to do and they delay because it's very, very painful. No, you don't delay. You must act immediately. So don't make the mistake of postponing the inevitable. It is kinder to act immediately and possibly even make a little bit of mistake in your delivery rather than taking the necessary action for everyone in your team. Overextend yourself. Act immediately and overextend yourself. I would say, and not overextending yourself. If you do not act immediately and you do not overextend yourself, you have made a mistake. So overextend yourself and be kind. You will never regret being kind to your team and generous during these moments. Be as generous as you can. What do I tell them? You say, what do I say to my team? You tell the truth. The Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And in this situation, it's a real sense of being set free, being released. But so many entrepreneurs like, well, how do I deliver this to my team? Or how do I tell them? Or how you tell the truth. You say exactly what the situation is, exactly what happened, and exactly why they're being released. And that's it. And then you facilitate the conversation based on the responses that you get. And you be as kind as you can and as generous as you're able. Here's some ways that you can support them as you go through the release of them. You can write a recommendation, and this will help them get a new job in their next opportunity. You can recommend them to friends you know who need great help, because obviously if you hired them, You think they're incredible. They're great team members if you're keeping them. So if they're having to leave because you can't support them financially, maybe one of your other people that if you know somebody who owns a business, maybe they need the help. If you can help them and you have a connection at all in any way, do it. If you have any possible resources to help them make the transition easier, be as generous as possible. Now, in these situations, you're not always going to be able to be as generous as you would like to be. Everybody would love to give these massive severances packages and help everybody, but it's likely that when you're going through a downturn in your business, there's not going to be cash floating everywhere for you to grab and give to people. And if that was the case, you wouldn't be firing them, letting them go anyways, because you've had the money. You simply don't, but you do need to be as generous as possible and overextend as much as you can for this event. So tell the truth. That's what you tell them as you're making as you're doing the departure. One overarching principle that I would like you to remember throughout the entire that kind of sums up the entire situation, and it comes from the Bible again. A lot of Bible slinging around in this webinar today, but you need to treat them how you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. And that's a good principle for business in general, altogether, in all the steps that we talked about. Treat people the way you would want to be treated if you were in that situation, if you were in their shoes. And that will help you to understand how you can correctly navigate this situation of having to let people go. All right, so that brings us to the end of this webinar. And I thank you very much for bearing with me through my hurting jaw and my long webinar today. But I don't think that this part of business gets talked about enough. We talk about sales training and we talk about all the other elements of business, financial planning, and other things in business. But we don't talk enough about hardship. And I think that if more great leaders and more people who've been in business for longer would talk more about this subject, then more people would be able to stay in business. And that's why I'm going over this subject with you today, because I want you to understand the things that you need to know about what's coming, and that when you're coming, you're not knocked off track, completely thrown off your guard, because you didn't know it was going to get so bone crushing, spirit crushing hard. Because those things alone could destroy your ability to continue, because your morale just drops so low. You just get so discouraged. And how can you lead a team if you are broken and downtrodden, an old Bible word, right? An old Christian church word. If you're so downtrodden and broken in your spirit, how can you lead a team forward? We can't live like that. We weren't created to live like that. We have to acknowledge reality, take the next right step, be generous and honorable, and do the best we can, knowing that we're going to make those mistakes along the way. Accept the responses to what we've done with grace and honor and a generous spirit, and be as kind as we can, and take the next right step. So thank you again for joining me today. Please like the video, send us a comment, send us a question if you have a question about any sections in this video and any of the content that we've created. And we will be absolutely happy to respond back to you and get back to you with the information on the question that you sent to us. And we will see you next week at 9:30 Eastern on Wednesday. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.